Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're plunging into something that, well, it might just be the most overlooked superpower in leadership. We're talking about clarity of purpose. Whether you're trying to guide a team through tricky times or launch something new or even just figure out your own direction, really knowing your why it's essential. We
Yeah.
hear the word purpose thrown around a lot these days, and for good reason, especially with that big shift we saw, post-pandemic. So many people started rethinking their jobs, what really matters to them.
hmm
And that whole phenomenon, it really kind of put a spotlight back on how vital purpose is, both, personally and for the whole company. It's right at the heart of business, really. But today we're zeroing in on something maybe a bit more precise. Something an author, Surya M Ganduri, really explores in his work clarity of purpose in purposeful leadership.
Yes, the clarity aspect.
Exactly. The clarity of purpose. Think of it like the ultimate North Star for a leader. So, what we want to do today is really unpack why this clarity acts like a compass, how it guides, well, pretty much everything: decisions, communication, inspiration. We're hoping to show you how getting a handle on this one idea could actually be a shortcut to, more impactful leadership. So, let's dig in.
Yeah, and what's really interesting in Gundry's view is how he breaks down clarity of purpose. It's not just one single thing. He sees it as a three-part understanding. It starts naturally with the leader's own purpose, what really drives them.
Okay.
But crucially, it doesn't stop there. It's also about understanding the purpose of the people around you, your team members, your colleagues. And then the third piece is figuring out how those individual and team purposes connect, how they feed into the bigger picture, the company's purpose.
Oh, so it's not just about me finding my own direction, but I also need to actively figure out where everyone else is heading and how it all fits together. That feels much more complex.
It is, yeah. And the argument is really that for a company's purpose to actually work, to actually drive things forward, leaders have got to get what drives them,
Okay.
sure. But then they need to put, just as much energy into understanding what motivates their team, what gets them going.
Right.
It kind of begs the question, right? Can a corporate mission truly succeed if the individual whys behind it aren't really understood or aligned? And there was a really powerful story in the source about this. A CEO, he was absolutely clear on his own purpose,
Mm.
and he knew the company mission inside out. But he started noticing his team members were, well, they were mostly focused on their own functional silos, marketing,
Yeah.
sales, whatever.
Right, they're their specific job.
Exactly, not really on the collective goal.
Right.
And he realized he hadn't truly grasped what drove them as individuals, beyond just their job title. And because he didn't have that piece, he couldn't really bridge the gap between their personal drives and the bigger company mission. He struggled to truly unite everyone.
Wow.
It's a pretty stark reminder, isn't it? You can't just assume everyone's on the same page with the why.
That really hits home. How easy it is to miss those individual motivations. It's like having a perfect map of where you want to go, but no idea what kind of fuel each person on your team needs to get there. And that brings us right to that core analogy the source uses, the compass.
Precisely. Ganduri puts it really well. He says, clarity of purpose is like the compass that keeps purposeful leadership heading in the right direction.
Mm.
And it's critical, absolutely critical, because it touches everything. I mean, how a leader communicates, the kinds of decisions they make, how effectively they inspire people, it all stems from that clarity.
Mm.
But there's a warning, too. The author says, basically, purposeful leadership without clarity is like setting out on a journey with no map.
Okay.
You might be moving, you might be busy, sure, but you're not necessarily heading towards anything meaningful. You could just be burning energy, lots of activity, but zero real impact.
That's a powerful image. And honestly, a bit scary thinking about all that wasted effort. It makes me wonder, though. Are there times when maybe a bit of ambiguity, like not having a perfectly fixed map, could actually be good for discovery? Or is clarity always the end goal?
That's a really good question. And look, there's definitely room for exploration, for creativity, right?
Yeah.
But when we're talking specifically about leadership guiding others, using resources, the source argues that ongoing confusion about purpose usually just leads to, well, chaos.
Right.
It's like trying to build, that IKEA cabinet just by looking at the picture on the box. You see the potential, but everyone ends up with different screws in the wrong places.
Okay, I get that.
So with that idea of the compass in mind, the author points to 5 specific reasons why this clarity is so important. Maybe we can break those down.
Yeah, let's do that. Starting with the first one, direction and focus. We hear focus all the time, but how does purpose clarity give it maybe deeper kind of focus, especially when things get rough?
Well, it works like an internal filter. almost like a strategic no button. It helps leaders cut through all the noise, all the distractions, and really stay locked onto the long-term vision. So when a crisis pops up or the market suddenly shifts, that clarity lets you ask, okay, does this new thing actually align with our core why?
Hmm.
If it doesn't, it becomes much easier to say no or not right now and keep the main thing the main thing. It anchors you.
And when you have that clear direction yourself, what's the effect on the team? How does clarity actually inspire people, beyond just giving tasks?
It's about sharing the vision, right? Not just the to-do list. When a leader can paint a really compelling picture of the purpose, and crucially, they genuinely believe it themselves, people get way more engaged.
Yep.
They stop seeing it as just a job. They see how their piece fits into something bigger, something shared. And that fosters a real sense of mission. That's the foundation for stronger team spirit, deeper commitment, even when the work itself is tough.
That shared belief, it sounds like it leads straight into the third pillar you mentioned, authenticity and integrity. In a world where everyone's pre-skeptical, how does clarity build trust?
Yeah, it's huge for trust.
Hmm.
Leaders driven by a clear purpose often come across as more trustworthy, simply because their actions tend to consistently match their words, their values. And it's not always about big dramatic things, it's the everyday choices. When those small decisions reflect that core purpose, people notice.
Right.
That clarity just makes it easier to lead ethically, to stand your ground when things get difficult. When your team sees you walking the talk consistently, that's where real loyalty comes from.
Makes total sense. And I can see how that flows into the fourth one, consistency in communication. How does purpose clarity help cut through all the daily noise and information overload?
It gives you a solid framework, a kind of backbone for all your communication. So whether you're setting goals, explaining expectations, giving feedback, whatever it is, everyone understands the why behind the what. Imagine every team member hearing that same underlying reason behind every update, every strategy shift, every new project. It just cuts down on confusion, on people interpreting things differently. It helps everyone pull in the same direction because the core message is always clear. It filters out the static.
Okay, and the last one, growth and impact. What are the bigger picture results for companies when leaders operate with this clarity? How does it help them grow sustainably?
Well, organizations led this way often focus on creating value that's, broader than just the next quarter's profits. They might prioritize things like social impact or really invest in developing their employees because they see how those things connect to their long-term purpose and resilience. It allows a company to adapt more easily when the market changes too, because their fundamental why stays constant, even if the how needs to evolve. It's about building something that lasts, something that makes a real difference.
So bringing it all together then, what we've really talked about today is how clarity of purpose isn't just some fluffy concept. It's the actual compass for effective, purposeful leadership.
Exactly.
It's what gives you direction, helps you truly inspire your team, lets you act with authenticity, communicate clearly and consistently, and ultimately build something with lasting impact. And maybe the most important part, it's not just about the leader's own purpose, right? It's about really understanding and connecting the purposes of everyone else to those bigger goals.
That connection piece is key.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. If clarity of purpose is your leadership compass, how often are you actually checking it? Not just against your own true north, but also against the maybe sometimes surprising directions of the people you lead. Something to think about.